this is where active mind comes in, because 6 years ago, I remember having that discussion with him, and I was feeling like, oh man, lifting's making me really tight. It's screwing up my practice. And he's like, yeah, it will. And he wasn't into lifting at the time. Years go by, and I think it was probably a year ago now, that he said to me, yo, I've been really into lifting lately. I'm like, what? And what he said was that there's a way to lift that doesn't pattern tension deeply in the body. And we can get into what that involves, but first of all, just lifting and getting strong in general creates a very stable foundation in the first body, in the physical body. So that's giving you the ability to stack like the chi, the emotions, the mind, everything else has this really rock solid and stable foundation. But it's not that we only want that foundation to be strong, we want it to be fluid. Your body, as we've found like out there doing the movement practice, everybody has probably made a pretty substantial leap in just how well their body moves just in this week, right? At first the spine wave was pretty janky. I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, we got some work to do. And this, by yesterday, we were great. Like, whoa, that's significant. So I started lifting again just maybe, I don't know, 4 to 6 months ago. And when I say lifting, I mean, for the most part, it's body weight stuff for me. But the key was, number one, getting really strong in stretched positions. So not doing partial range stuff, which is most of weightlifting. Even if you bench press, it's only to here. And it cuts you off at that point. I'm doing, with the perfect push-up handles, like rotating into external rotation and getting all the way down here, as stretched as I can be. Adam and I actually went to Home Depot and I bought 1x4s, cut them up and stacked them so that I could elevate the perfect push-up handles and get even deeper into a stretch. So you don't want to get stronger up here than you are in the stretch. And this is like Ben Patrick, knees over toes, I'm a huge fan of, because most of what he teaches he does apply it to the full body, but it's essentially like get strong in the stretch with knees over toes, put the joint actually into a little bit of pressure and tension so that it gets stronger. So that's part one, get really strong in the stretch, not a lot of like partial range stuff. I used to do floor pressing. Like when I was in high school, I'd do floor pressing because I'm like, man, when I get down here, my shoulders hurt. What I should have done is like get rid of the bar entirely and use either dumbbells or push-ups and get strong down here so my shoulders stop hurting. But I just like got stronger and stronger in this, and suddenly I'm doing 2 plates on floor press or whatever, and my shoulders are just getting worse and worse. So make your joints strong in the stretch. I don't recommend typically a lot of barbell stuff. Dumbbells are better for doing that because they give you more range of motion. In addition to that, all of the smaller muscle groups, so serratus anterior, external rotators, hip flexors, tibialis, all of this stuff, again, like knees over toes covers all of this. Strengthening that stuff, doing things like external rotations, hip flexion, there's all that stuff out there. We won't cover it in detail. That will, again, really fortify all of the connecting points in the body so that energy can flow smoothly through it. One of the most important points here, though, is that typically when we lift, we're generating a whole bunch of tension in the body. Like in a bench press, we're very, very, very rigid and muscling the weight up. And the key point that my teacher was making is that you can lift in an athletic way. It doesn't have to be this very rigid, tense lift. It can be a lot more fluid, and the rule is only generate tension that's needed. So if I am in a push-up, I'm sort of in a fluid, like athletic motion. I'm not muscling the entire way, and I'm going into scapular retraction, scapular protraction at the end, and really like fluidly going through the full range. And then this is actually a like Ken Wilber technique that Adam told me about. relaxing your body at the end of the set. Like relax all that tension completely. Relax the body completely so it's not holding on to any of that. Doing the movement, I would recommend first, actually, like first before you lift. So doing the movement warm up, we go through 6 healing sounds, qigong, there's a little bit of yoga pattern and all of the stuff that we've been doing that first and making the body kind of liquid. I really like that analogy because that's what it should feel. The body should feel liquid as it moves. Making the body feel that way, then bring that into the like strength movements, bring that same style where it's fluid and athletic and not just like rigid and inflexible. What else to say on this?
What do you mean by athletic way? You said do it in an athletic style. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it means that, so for example, in a vertical jump, there's going to be, like if you tense as hard as you possibly can when you jump, you don't jump very high. It's a tension and relaxation. So you want the same thing to whatever degree that you're able to in a strength movement. There's tension and relaxation. It's not just full body rigid tension all the way down, all the way up. It's tension and relaxation oscillating between the two. And to relax, you actually need to generate tension. So it's, again, toggling between the two. That's what all of athletics really is. Whenever your foot hits the ground in a sprint, that ground contact generates like 8 times your body weight in force or something like that. Don't quote me on the number, but that's the idea. It's a huge amount of force at contact, and then it relaxes. And so that's what we're patterning into our body, rather than the bodybuilder powerlifter style of just generating this massive tension that soon becomes very inflexible, has difficulty moving, there's a whole bunch of joint issues, all of that, right? So if we build up strength in that way, that's just going to build a solid system to run more chi through, to run more emotion through, to run more mental, intellectual intelligence through. If you look at like, this is the funniest part, because when I was in Maui with Bruce, he used to say that's not real strength. Whenever people would talk about like a 500-pound squat or something, he's like, that's not real strength. And it's true to a degree, but if you look back at Bruce when he was 19, 20, this guy is jacked and shredded. And he's mobile, like he's doing crazy yoga, asanas, and like he's wild and cage fighting. And like that, if you look at him, it's very clear why he could build all this chi on top of it. It's just a like solid system to run the current through. So it's really helpful. My baseline recommendation is follow some variation of knees over toes style training. Do it with that sort of athletic movement in mind, not generating tension that you can't let go of. Let go of the tension after the sets, pair it with the movement before, and don't make the mistake of getting hung up on the numbers, because that will lead you into generating tension just for the sake of making progress.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, exactly, but it's not actually progress, right? If this is the goal that we're talking about, like a fluid, strong body that you can run chi through, then the goal is not 5 more pounds in your squat. The goal is a fluid, strong body.
Are there any exercises you you could say like it's the pork of lifting, like don't do ever, like barbell back squat or, you know?
I mean, I wouldn't really make that claim at all, because you can really do most exercises in this way, but barbell benching comes to mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of hard to really make that one right. And if you're gonna do it, fine, but just make sure that you're balancing it out and like strengthening external rotation as much as possible and just being safe with it. But there's really no reason for anybody in this room, unless you're competing in the bench press and powerlifting or something like that, it's like why, you know, what's the purpose? Because you're going into stretched internal rotation. There's not a whole lot of good that comes out of that.
is barbell military press okay? Because you're doing basically the whole range of motion, right? You can even put it like somewhere over here and then go back up.
My recommendation would be dumbbells for that, so that you can actually use a neutral grip, externally rotate, and you can come down to here and come down here. Once you get good, you can work up to things like, I'm a huge fan of getting really good at moving your body through space versus moving a weight through space. So things like, again, this might be something to work up to, but handstand push-ups, even if your feet are up against the wall, and if you have parallettes, you can get down to here and do the equivalent of a military press, but upside down. Things like that you can learn, and then you just have more control over your body versus control over an external weight.